We're watching and following this and
The drug things and the supervisor, there will be no comment.
Dalton, Illinois, a once peaceful village known for its tight-knit community and tranquil streets, has now become a symbol of political unrest and controversy. Under the leadership of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, the village has seen a dramatic shift, with her tenure marked by a relentless pursuit of power, questionable decisions, and a clear disregard for accountability. What was once a model of community governance has devolved into a political battleground rife with mistrust and division. One of the most contentious points of Henyard's administration was the appointment of Lacey as police chief. Initially perceived as a routine administrative decision, it quickly became a focal point for critics who argued that Lacey's selection was less about merit and public service and more about political loyalty. This decision, they claim, set a dangerous precedent where allegiance to the mayor outweighed qualifications and competence. Henyard's strategy of consolidating power through key appointments like Lacey's has transformed Dalton's government into one where personal and political calculations dominate. Residents have been left to bear the brunt of this shift as trust in local leadership has eroded. Public safety and administrative decisions, once driven by the needs of the community, now seem to be dictated by political expedience and personal ambition. Favoritism, opacity, and self-interest have come to define Henyard's administration. The appointment of Lacey became a turning point, symbolizing the extent of Henyard's efforts to stifle dissent and eliminate opposition. Lacey, described by critics as a loyal enforcer of the mayor's agenda, has supported Henyard's most controversial policies while suppressing voices that dared to question her authority. This shift has transformed Dalton from a village celebrated for its ethos of transparency and community focus into a case study of governance gone awry. Public opinion in Dalton has grown increasingly polarized, while Henyard's supporters, many of whom have benefited directly from her administration, laud her as a transformative leader. A growing number of disillusioned residents regret the shift away from a service-oriented government. These critics lament the rise of opaque processes, favoritism, and political maneuvering, which have left the broader community feeling excluded and betrayed. The systemic flaws in Dalton's leadership have raised serious concerns about the village's future. By prioritizing the consolidation of power and loyalty, Henyard's administration has undermined public trust, stifled civic engagement, and left residents grappling with the fallout. This includes diminished faith in public institutions, a lack of representation, and a government seemingly more focused on personal gain than the collective welfare. One particularly striking example of the growing tension between Henyard's administration and the residents was a judge's decision to issue a temporary restraining order, preventing the mayor from making certain appointments without prior approval. This legal intervention underscored the mounting scrutiny of Henyard's leadership and highlighted the controversial nature of Lacey's appointment. Critics argue that Lacey has played a central role in silencing opposition, intimidating trustees, and suppressing activists advocating for the community's welfare. Her perceived loyalty to Henyard, rather than to the residents of Dalton, has only deepened the divide between the administration and the people it is supposed to serve. Many residents view Lacey as a key figure in Henyard's efforts to maintain control and suppress dissent, further eroding trust in the local government. As Dalton grapples with these challenges, the community is left questioning whether Henyard's administration is genuinely committed to the village's future or simply focused on consolidating power. While her supporters continue to praise her as a visionary leader, the broader population remains skeptical, demanding transparency, accountability, and meaningful reform. The situation in Dalton serves as a cautionary tale of what can happen when power is unchecked and accountability is disregarded. Although the judge's intervention has temporarily curbed Henyard's authority, it has done little to rebuild trust in an administration widely perceived as prioritizing its own interests over the well-being of the community. Dalton's path to recovery remains uncertain. Residents face the daunting task of dismantling entrenched systems of favoritism and opacity while advocating for a governance model that prioritizes integrity, transparency, and the common good. The future of Dalton hinges on the ability of its citizens to demand meaningful change and hold their leaders accountable. Only through collective effort can the village hope to restore its reputation as a community governed by trust and a genuine commitment to serving all its residents. As scrutiny of Henyard's administration intensifies, Tensions in Dalton have reached a boiling point. What was once a quiet and peaceful village is now a battleground for its future. The stakes have never been higher, and the outcome will determine whether Dalton can rise above its current challenges and reclaim its legacy of integrity and community spirit. Accusations of financial mismanagement, corruption, and abuse of power are rampant. The stark contrast between Henyard's loyal inner circle and the wider community, which is increasingly dissatisfied with her leadership, has created a deeply divided atmosphere as residents continue to speak out. Despite fears of retaliation, the mayor has resorted to legal action, filing a civil lawsuit in response to the mounting criticism and the legal challenges against her administration for Dalton. The consequences of Hen's leadership are clear. The village's institutions are weakened. Trust in public officials has all but vanished, and a community once proud of its harmonious existence is now grappling with the fallout from a leader who prioritizes personal ambition over the common good as the turmoil deepens. The stakes for Dalton's future have never been higher. The question remains whether the village can rise above the current crisis, reclaim its values, and restore a sense of unity and purpose. Only time will tell. Dalton can overcome the challenges posed by Hanging's controversial administration and rebuild its reputation as a community governed by transparency, accountability, and a commitment to the collective well-being of its residents. The path to recovery is uncertain, but the desire for change is palpable, and the community's voice will ultimately determine the future of this once proud village. The controversial actions of Mayor Tiffany Henyard and Deputy Police Chief Lacey have rocked the small village of Dalton, Illinois, drawing widespread public scrutiny. What makes the situation even more shocking is how openly Henyard and Lacey conducted their questionable business with little regard for the community's well-being. One particularly egregious example is Lacey's alleged use of coercive tactics to intimidate village trustees who dare to question Henyard financial choices or practices that could expose or misconduct, instead of focusing on the safety and well-being of Dalton's residents. Lacey's primary role seemed to be protecting Henyard from criticism and suppressing any opposition to her administration. Rumors began circulating that Henyard and Lacey's relationship went beyond the professional, with some trustees claiming they were threatened if they didn't support the mayor's decisions. These allegations of coercion and political manipulation were compounded by accusations of financial mismanagement. The village's finances were under strain, and it became apparent that public funds were being misused for personal gain rather than for the betterment of the community. One glaring example of financial recklessness involved over $3,000 being spent on Amazon using village funds. This expenditure, along with others, highlighted a troubling pattern of misappropriating taxpayer money for personal pleasures. A particularly extravagant example was the use of $85,000 in public funds to throw a lavish party, raising serious questions about Henyard's financial priorities and her commitment to Dalton's needs instead of investing in infrastructure, public safety, or essential services. Henyard and her inner circle seemed to treat public funds as their own personal bank account, diverting money toward luxuries. These excessive expenditures further fueled distrust among residents, many of whom questioned how such actions could continue with such impunity. The lack of accountability and transparency from Hen's administration was palpable, and the public's concerns were met with either hostility or indifference. As financial waste continued under Henyard's leadership, Dalton's government became a symbol of misdirected priorities, with those in charge more focused on their own personal interests than on the collective well-being of the village. Henyard's hold power, supported by her loyal enforcer Lacey, was increasingly challenged as evidence of corruption mounted in a dramatic turn of events. Several village trustees once loyal to Henyard began to break ranks and expose the depths of the corruption within Dalton's government. The loyalty of those closest to Henyard was called into question as the mayor's wrongdoings began to catch up with her. Lacey, who had long been a mayor's enforcer, found himself involved in a legal battle, and his once unshakable political loyalty to Henyard was brought into doubt. The situation reached a boiling point when rumors surfaced that Lacey had evaded taxes, adding fuel to the already escalating legal issues surrounding both him and Henyard. The judge overseeing the case against Henyard ruled against holding her in contempt, but cautioned her that further disobedience of court orders would have serious repercussions. Meanwhile, Lacey's legal troubles mounted, with investigations into the misuse of public funds focusing more closely on his actions as the pressure grew. It is reported that Lacey's once composed demeanor began to crack, and he started cooperating with authorities in a last-ditch attempt to save himself. Lacey's cooperation with the authorities marked a sharp break from his past loyalty to Henyard. He was accused of tax evasion, civil rights violations, and misappropriation of public funds. Even the police union, which had previously supported him, issued a statement calling for his imprisonment. The scandal surrounding Lacey and Henyard reached a fever pitch, with one local resident even suggesting that Lacey should serve a life